you searching for fulfillment? Discover true happiness. Stay tuned to Shalom World.
This week we're back in Wollongong again, and I'm talking to an awesome guy today. The first time I ever met him, he walked out on stage wearing a bathrobe to talk to a couple of hundred young people about Jesus. He's a man who doesn't care what people think about him, but just wants to tell other people about his relationship with Jesus. He's an absolute inspiration, a gifted musician, and he's lended us this place that we can interview people and chat. And we're finally out in the balcony today. Seth, how are you going?
Zach, I'm doing well.
It's finally good to be out on the balcony. The weather's been pretty miserable, hey?
It has, but we found a nice spot right now. It's not raining,
Yep.
and you can see the ocean, so
Yeah, you hear it in the background. Something relaxing about being by the ocean, hey?
there's nothing better.
I think psychologists would be like, it's something about being near like streams. You can like find water, you can find like fish to eat. There's something calming about being by the beach.
Yeah, the sound of it, it's just so soothing. I love it.
It's
Yeah,
like your voice.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But there's a consistency to as the waves roll in. There's like a rhythm to it and a consistency. It's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's great living here. Can't complain.
Well, we're not here to talk about the weather. We are here to talk about, I guess, being authentic witness to young people.
Yeah.
Wollongong, as you guys can see, is a surfy, skatey sort of town, sort of similar to where I grew up. Port Macquarie had a big surfing and skating scene. And so when I sort of came to the faith, I found myself in this Christian culture, which was quite radically different to this surfing and skating culture that I was sort of surrounded in. You sort of work in youth ministry here in Wollongong. What's your experience been like working in ministry here in the Gong, the big Gong, the Wollongong?
Man, well, I guess I have the privilege of being able to work all over the diocese. And so the Wollongong diocese, you've got the Illawarra, which is kind of like that middle bit on the coast. But then you've got the MacArthur, which is up in the north.
Yep.
And then you've got the Shoalhaven, which is down to the south. And then you've got the Highlands out in the west. And so it's really interesting that each region is so different.
Culturally,
Not just ethnic-wise, but just the attitude and all that kind of, exactly, the vibe. So it's so interesting. In the MacArthur, a lot more ethnicity.
Yeah.
And I think a lot more cultural faith practice.
Yeah, cool.
And so I find that it's often a lot easier to get, a lot of those, young people in MacArthur to engage, but it's also just more natural for them.
Yeah.
They just turn up to stuff. And they don't even think twice about it. But you really know, I think, that you're doing something right in youth ministry when you can get, young people in Illawarra to engage, or some of those other places that it's not as natural for them. It's not just naturally a part of their life. I think you're doing something right when they engage, because there's something in it that attracts them. They're not just going because it's familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And what are some of the things that you've been doing? You've been working here for how many years?
I don't know. I think it's about 6 now.
6, yeah. So you're sort of
6 years.
the face behind a lot of the live nights and the school concerts and things like that. What was the festival I saw you in the bathrobe?
That was year
Live?
before
Was
last.
that Live Festival?
Yeah, Live
Yeah.
Festival. Yeah, year before last, maybe.
Yeah. How many young people would go to that?
I think they're about 350 or something like that at that one.
Yeah.
So with Live Festival, we've actually managed to pretty much double our numbers every single year. So
Wow.
we've had true exponential growth.
Yeah.
So we started with about 150, and our last one was 600. So we've been only doing it for a few years now, but.
It's going to show how many different young people are in this diocese, like that many people coming to one event. Obviously, with such a wide variety of cultures and I guess vibes of young people that express faith or experience life differently, how do you find sort of being an authentic witness in a culture that might be radically different to the gospel?
Yeah. It's interesting, and I share this with a lot of young people in schools, when I was in high school, I found how much I was concerned about my own image debilitating.
Yeah.
It crippled me, the extent to which I was worried about what people thought about me, and that kind of thing. At the age of 23, I had an encounter of God's love, an experience of God's love, that I suppose kind of put everything into perspective. And from that moment on, I guess I just haven't really cared that much. And for me, I think at the heart of it, it's really just about sharing that experience. There's an authenticity to one's own experience. This is what happened to me, and if you're open to it, you can experience this too. And so that's, I suppose, really what's at the heart of so much of what we do. I mean, here in Wollongong, I have a background in music, and I really wanted to bring that. And I've seen it so successful, obviously, in so many other churches, so many other Christian churches, and I wanted to bring that to what we do in our Catholic expression. And so early on, I employed what I kind of call the Red Bull approach. So Red Bull, they want somebody to experience their drinks, right? Yeah. And so they put, two, attractive people into a Red Bull car, and they drive into a highly populated area,
free Red
and
Bull.
They hand out Red Bull.
Yeah.
Well, we've got something better than the Red Bull here. We've got the gospel, we've got the good news. We're going to encounter with God and His love. And I was like, well, why don't we do the same thing with that? Why don't we just go into the most heavily populated areas where young people are concerned and hand out the gospel?
Wow.
And so,
with attractive people.
That's, your words, I'll agree.
Yeah.
No, so we ended up building a mobile stage, and that's what we did. We and the basis of it was, apart from that whole Red Bull approach, was to give young people an experience of the faith that was fun, that was relatable, that was kind of normal. I think young people either have an idea of faith that is inaccurate, or they've had an experience of faith that has kind of given them certain ideas about what that experience might be like. And we wanted to go in there and go, guys, exactly, this is what Catholic youth ministry can be like. It can be done by normal people, and we get it. And we're relatable. And so we go in there, we did lunchtime concerts in schools. We literally drive onto the playground, play concerts for these young people. Drop the side down. I bring some guys in from Sydney that I played with while I was up there. And we just have a great time. The kids have a great time. And we're just very straightforward about we're Catholic Youth Ministry Wollongong. And if you've enjoyed what you've experienced here, hang around. We're doing something after school, but come along to these other things as well.
I guess the difference between you guys and Red Bull is I feel like Red Bull, or maybe take any other energy drink, they sort of say, this drink is for you because we are exactly like your culture. So the Red Bull guys, they might be at the skate parks and stuff, and they're doing the skating, but they also adapt to the exact same culture. Maybe it's the drugs and the alcohol that goes with it and the Jaeger bombs or whatever. You guys don't do that.
No.
So how do you sort of find that?
Yeah. It's interesting because I think our approach is we juxtapose. I think in a way Red Bull helps us, right? Because when you think about it, you're a young person, you're going out and, you might be drinking a lot and you might be into the whole drug scene or you might be into whatever. You might really want to be a social media influencer. But I think most people involved, if not all people involved in that, realize there's still something that they're searching for, They realize that as successful as they might be, as popular as they might be, as much of these things as they might have, they realize they're not satisfied. And so, in a sense, Red Bull makes it easy for us because we go, well, you've tried that and it didn't satisfy you. This will. And that's, I think, what helps us be countercultural is we go, no matter how much of these things you have, they will never bring you the peace that you're looking for, the happiness that you're looking for. Jesus will, and a relationship with Him will. And it's not just about knowing that He existed 2,000 years ago, it's about experiencing Him as a real person today in your life.
That's really cool. And you sort of take, I guess, the wholesome elements of society and you draw on the things, there's nothing stopping you guys from having a Bible study down by the beach of people who are keen to surf. As a young guy when I started coming through the faith, I remember a teacher ran a Bible study at lunchtime and he said, would Jesus drink goon? And just held a bit of a discussion about it because, as a young guy, I was drinking goon at parties and stuff, and I thought that was kind of cool. But those teachers didn't go as far to sort of condone that sort of culture either. And I found that when I, was a young guy and I just sort of had this encounter with Jesus, I really struggled to differentiate between how I should be living my life as a Christian and how I should be living my life with my friends. And I remember one story in particular, we'd all had a few too many drinks. It was late at night, early in the morning. and I was in a cupboard, like a pantry, eating snacks, talking to people about this relationship I had with Jesus that had like completely changed my life. But I was not living like it had changed my life, you know. And my friend who, actually went on to become one of my groomsmen on my wedding, I really value him. He kind of like tried to fight me because I was like being a hypocrite, not practicing what I preached. And I was just like, I ran out of the room crying. And I think in that moment and on that night, I realized just how important it was for us, if we are going to be preaching the gospel, to practice what we preach. But obviously sometimes we stuff up. Have you ever had any incidents where you've like made a mistake or compromised your integrity as a Catholic or as a Christian?
Absolutely. I think, having gone from being someone that was participating in youth groups and being led by those around me, then moving into roles where I was leading others, one thing that I discovered was the importance of practicing what you preach, the importance of integrity. I didn't get just how important that was as a leader. And I think some of my biggest failures in ministry have been where I've let the people that I'm meant to be leading around me down. I really do. Where I haven't, and I with my team, I run formation with my team most weeks, and try and encourage my team most weeks, pray together with my team most weeks. And it becomes then really obvious. It becomes a stark contrast when then I drop the ball, and I might say something to someone in my team, or I might say something to someone that works for me that I know doesn't reflect, Christ or what I'm trying to encourage them to be. And so I have those, I have challenges like that come up all the time. There are some instances that are obviously more obvious in my ministry than others, but that's something that I'm working on.
Is there anything
constantly.
like particular that you struggle with, and maybe? I feel like the thing about these things is they're often blind spots, you don't often know you have them until your best mate tries to fight you in the pantry. Or you don't have it until a team member confronts you about it. Like, is there anything in particular you feel like you've struggled with in the past in regards to your authenticity as a Catholic missionary that you've been called out on and challenged to grow in? Maybe some of our viewers have and don't know about.
Yeah. One of my biggest weaknesses is negativity.
Right.
For sure. And sometimes I almost pride myself on it, which I'm ashamed of.
Like being a cynic.
Absolutely. Calling people out on something and, oftentimes masking it as honesty, or masking it as just being frank, or masking it as just being black and white, but in fact, I'm just being uncharitable. And sometimes setting that example, sometimes, I even catch myself out as I'm doing it, but it doesn't always stop me.
Yeah.
But, I'll be talking about someone that we all know. And I'll be talking about them in a way that I'm absolutely not proud of, but I just keep doing it, and the people around me go along with it. And I think to myself, that's not cool, I wouldn't want them to certainly talk that way about me, but I would never want to hear any of them talking about, someone else that way. And if I was running formation with my team, if I was encouraging them, I'd be encouraging them away from that kind of behavior, sort of to say those things. So I think, to always look for good, to always look for the good and to always will the good, for others is for me a really, really big challenge. And even though I preach it, it's something that I certainly don't practice all the time.
And what do you do when you find yourself not living the way you would want to? Because I know for me, when I had that moment with my mate, it wasn't just a quick fix. Oh, I'm no longer going to have too many beers and be a drunkard. It's actually it's still to this day one of the things I think I probably struggle with the most is probably that. It's just a big part of my culture, a big part of my family. And there's a part of me that just wants to say, oh, that's just who I am. It's something I'm always going to struggle with. What did you do to overcome that?
I think, and it sounds cliche, but I think love is almost always the answer. And by love, I don't just mean it in the cliche sense. I mean genuinely willing the good for the other. I think in just about any area of weakness, if I can overcome that by willing the good of the other, if I find myself being selfish, looking after my own interests, if I find myself, another thing about ministry and leadership I think I struggle with as well is loneliness a lot of the time. You might be leading a lot of people, but because you do have those professional boundaries in place, who do you spend that time with where you can really open up, and things like that becomes really difficult. And, I think those sorts of things can cause a person to downward spiral. I think it can cause a person to be overly inward focused. And that's a really, really dangerous place to be in. And I think asking for God's grace in those situations and genuinely loving the other. I find the best solution to selfishness is actually to look outside of oneself to the other. Helping someone else out has this remarkable power to help us get outside of our heads and outside of ourselves and our own interests and actually kind of grow. It's almost like a breath of fresh air for the ego to love the other. And I think the other thing that is super, super helpful, and I think I don't do it enough, is to be deeply aware of the fact that God is here now. Like God is right here, like with me right now. I mean, God's here with us right now during this interview, but like it doesn't matter what I'm doing or what I'm going through, He's actually there. And we say it, yeah, He's with us all the time. No.
But you can feel it in those moments where like you have that decision. Say, for example, yourself, it is gossiping about people and you know you're lonely and you're trying to make yourself feel a little bit better. Sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, you can almost feel that part where you're like, oh, this is where I should stop. And He's there going, this is where you should stop, you know?
Yeah.
And say for me, it's when I'm at home and I've had a couple of beers and my friend has offered me another one. It's going to take something of me to be like, I'm okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But He's there.
Absolutely.
He's like, come on, man, this is your time.
Yeah.
It's in those moments.
It's hard as well, I think, the realization. I say this to young people all the time, but he loves me through that as well. It's not to say He approves of that or He's encouraging me in that.
Yeah.
But He loves me in that, and I think that despair can often come about as a result of, well, I've done the wrong thing, I might, whatever, just drop the ball, and I'll just continue along this, maybe until I go to confession next, or whatever it might be. But to know that He's still loving me in this moment, and even though I might have dropped the ball, He's there, He's encouraging me to,
I think that's particularly important, like when sharing with young people as well, like, is to say that, just because I've stuffed up and I've fallen short, it's like, this is not okay. Like, I want you to know that I'm working on this, and like you should be too. And it's okay if you feel like you're stuffing up. I'm stuffing up. We're all stuffing up. But He's there with us. He loves us, and He wants more for us.
Yeah,
it's pretty incredible. How do you go about sort of like sharing with young people about some of these issues of maybe morality or ways that young people should be living their lives that are countercultural? How have your discussions been about that? What are some things you found particularly fruitful in encouraging them to live counterculturally?
It's a tricky one these days because I think oftentimes there's a perceived virtue in doing your own thing irrespective of what anybody else might say or anybody else might think.
Yep.
It's actually, there's a perceived virtue in that. And so you then have to be careful if you're challenging someone in an area like that. So again, I think for me, without wanting it to sound too cliche, it comes down to love. You know, like I think it's often, a revelation for young people. It's a revelation for me still to will the good of the other. Just stop in the moment and check yourself. And is this for you or is this for them? And I think that's a game changer.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
Like,
I've been there.
Yeah,
I've gone too hard, and someone's come up to me and said, "Hey, you're making me feel condemned." And in the moment, I'm like, this is a young guy that I see who's involved in ministry, and I see so much potential in him. And I'm like, bro, this is the message of the theology of the body. This is how you could be living out your sexuality. And in the process, I've really damaged him and his relationship with Jesus. And I've had to wear that because in the moment, I was trying to help someone. I was trying to be the savior. And it's like, the reality is, you don't need to be. We have one already. Yeah. And He knows what's going to get through to them. You don't.
Yeah, well, I was talking to some youth ministry leaders recently in some training, and I was talking to them about the two great motivators, love and fear. And I was saying that great leaders throughout history used both of these things, but I think always the more powerful motivator is love. Somebody might avoid doing something because they're scared of getting caught.
Yeah.
But if they think they won't get caught, they'll do it.
Yeah.
If that fear of getting caught is gone, they'll continue to do it. But I think when somebody's motivated out of love through inspiration, it's a powerful motivator. And so, yes, I'm loving that person as I'm speaking to them. I want them to live a full life. And it's interesting, isn't it, that sometimes when we're telling someone the truth, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that we want the best for them and we just want to win the argument. I feel like I certainly am guilty of that. So there's that, but also bearing in mind that I'm trying to inspire that person to want the good.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to intellectually wrestle them to the ground and put them into some kind of moral submission hold where they, just concede and they go, right, you're right. Yeah. I want them to fall in love with Jesus, and I want them to fall in love with love, like loving others, doing what's best for the other. And I think deep down, that's what people really want. And so when it comes down to things like, it's the difficult issues, homosexuality, abortion, all that kind of stuff, pornography, all of these things, instead of tackling the issue head on, a lot of the time I think it's a little bit easier to talk about the loving thing,
And the thing is, like, our faith is inextricable from a relationship with Jesus. And when your faith and your morality is embedded in that, it's no longer a thing of, this is something I shouldn't do. It's like, I will separate myself from Jesus by doing this. And so I need to have a holy fear of the Lord, not because he's so big and so awesome that he could smite me, which he could, but it's like just like you, as a loved one, it's like, as Seth, I don't want to do anything that would hurt our relationship. So I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to try not to do anything. So thank you so much for joining us. I think that's about all we have time for, but it's been incredible having you on the show. What you guys are doing here in the Gong is awesome. And I think there's a whole lot of lessons there for any young people that are involved in ministry and how to be authentic witnesses just like you. So
yeah, great.
Thanks Zach. Let's enjoy the view, eh?
Absolutely.
How's that weather? Good weather for ducks.
Still a bit foggy, but
yeah,
you can still see the waves.
Yep.
Looks like these guys have their wetties on.
Wedding.
Might not be all that warm in.
Yeah.
A lot of talk in our church today about the new evangelisation, and we might ask, well, what's new about the new evangelisation? One thing that's new is that we're trying to renew the faith in people who should already be Catholic, should already be Christian. Individuals, families, communities, whole cultures that need to rediscover the gospel. And so what's new is that they're getting a new shot in the arm of faith, of evangelisation. Another thing that's new about it is the way that we do that. And the new media and groups like Shalom World TV are very important for bringing the gospel anew to our cultures, to our families, to each of us individually. And so I encourage all the viewers of Shalom World TV, and I encourage Shalom World TV themselves to keep up the good work, to keep watching this channel and to keep up the good work of presenting the Catholic faith to our world today.